Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co., and this video is going to be talking about my recent Gamefound sponsorship, but we're going to get there. So timestamps as usual down below in case you want to check out any particular section. As usual, all that stuff. If you want to jump straight to the sponsorship, what it means, what's happening, whether it's going on, well, all details of the sponsorship will be in that timestamp, but we'll slowly make our way there, because I'm kind of bundling in another video with this. You see, a few days ago, this past, like 4 or 5 days ago, well, from when I filmed this, not from when you're watching it, I filmed a different video. And I'm not posting that video because the video sounded much more negative than I intended. Not a review, to be clear. It was talking about negativity. It was talking about negativity in the space. You see, there's a YouTuber who I follow, who I appreciate his videos, William Osman, fantastic channel, who posted a video recently saying, "I'm done." That was his video. And it was about negativity. It was about the general aspect of how the crowd, of how they can get to you, of how that 1 to 5% of your audience that's negative, that's finding reasons to be frustrated, he can't take it anymore. Which is a separate problem as to how you should deal with that, whatnot. But like, people on the other side of the camera are not superhuman. Negative things get to them. And he talks about this in his video. He talks about how there's this presumption of, well, you shouldn't do this if you can't take it, and then proceed to be a jerk and like just say, well, it's your fault that you can't take it, which is bizarre. I agree with both things, by the way. I agree with the fact that you have to let those things wash off you as much as possible, and you have to let the negativity not get to you. But also, despite the fact that that's my job or whoever's job in front of the camera to not let it get to you, it's also your job, and by you I mean the 1 to 5%, not the rest of you that are mostly positive. It's also your job to be a decent human being. And so those are things too. And so that video really bothered me because it hurts to see. Like, I understand what it means to be behind the camera. I understand what it means to deal with the comments. I understand what it means to face this uphill battle where you try to convince people that they should like you more, or that they should trust you more, or that don't be a jerk to me, or no, I am trying to improve my content. It's an uphill battle, and so I understand that frustration, and I really felt for William, and I made the mistake, this was a mistake, of filming a video the same day talking about negativity in the general YouTube space, and this is true for any content creation, wherever you are, just the general internet negativity. And when I say it was a mistake, I mean that it was a mistake to film that video the same day that I was bothered by it. Because when you act in the heat of the emotion, you tend to not act as rationally as possible, and it really hurt me to see him, going through this, and so I posted a video lambasting negativity in the board game space. Not in the board game space, in the YouTube space. And I'm not posting that video because the net results of that video was I'm way too harsh in that video about how dare you be negative, and I'm being harsh to like 1% of the people of you watching this. So, and I did start off that video the whole, like, I'm not talking to most of you, but still, it was the wrong taste or feel for what I was going for, so I'm bundling that into this video instead. Spent way too long talking about this. Welcome to Board Game Co. I ramble. So, let's go ahead and talk about some of the highlights of that video, because I still do want to talk about some aspects of it. I just want to touch upon them rather than overly focusing on them. So again, the channel's William Osman. I'll link down below. The video's called I'm Done. I'll link to that video, not the channel specifically. A whole bunch of fascinating insights, including the fact that people managed to be negative, like when his house burned down. People found reasons to complain. And then there was a GoFundMe, which for that house, and, he got money for the GoFundMe. But then every time he ever did anything, he got comments, "Oh, I see you're spending that GoFundMe money." Like, this obnoxiousness of this weird entitlement to the personal everything of people's lives. And things like the fear. He had this fear. He bought a car at one point with his own money that he earned, but he had this fear of telling people because they'll judge me for actually doing well. It's something called the Emma Chamberlain paradox. Fascinating concept, where this idea that relatability breeds success. When you see someone young and scrappy on the other side and they seem just like you, that breeds success. But then success can make you unrelatable. It's a bit of a paradox, which one, you can't have them both. And I understand that. I understand the nature of just being some scrappy individual versus actually doing well, and those balances of, oh, he's just like me, no he isn't, he's working with the publishers and he's a terrible fraud and all this. And again, we're talking about working with the publishers, we're going to get there, but I understand that balance. When I started in my basement with no production quality, with no anything, with all my videos filmed on a phone, barely able to have a conversation without significant number of pauses and ums and ahs left, right, and center, to a certain extent I was more relatable. Potentially less ideal quality content, but as more relatable. And now I work with publishers, I get prototypes from publishers, I engage with large companies such as Awaken Realms, Mythic Games, come on, I deal with these companies, and then that potentially adds to the conversation of me being a shill for whatever, and we'll come back to the whole aspect. And again, it's not, I said this in another video, I don't want to go down the same rabbit hole of deleting another video, but this is not focused towards most of you. Because one of the things he talked about in that video, William Osman, and one of the things that's generally true, is 95 to 99% of your audience is positive. It's the inherent nature of the fact that they subscribe, they want to see what you're doing, and so most people are there to be positive. But then the 1% comes in because, first of all, some people are just messed up and they'll subscribe only to complain on a regular basis. Those people need some serious help. And then there's the other people who less serious help, but still a little bit of basic human decency, where YouTube suggests the video. They didn't sign up for your content. They didn't. YouTube suggested the content, and they're like, bad algorithm, your videos suck, whatever it is. And those people still need help. Not necessarily as much, because like if you signed up, if you subscribed, I mean, if you subscribe to a channel, be nice to the channel you subscribe to. If you didn't subscribe, be nice as a general human being. But this aspect, most people are positive, but still the negative gets to you more. And in this video, he talks about why negative gets to you more. There's different reasons. My reason is somewhat lines up with some of the YouTubers he's talking to in that video, which is basically negative gets to me more. And again, I try to let it wash off, and most of the time I'm successful, but there are certainly days where negative comments will get to me. And it usually gets to me because I expect better of myself. If you say, you suck, okay, whatever. But if you say something like, hey, you explained the rules poorly, you made mistakes in that gameplay, or even like recently, the Lords of Ragnarok review that I did recently, where there was a generally, like usually I would say my audience is 1% negative, and then sometimes it goes a little higher. Lords of Ragnarok was a time when it went closer to 3 to 5% negative. And part of that reflects on the fact that I didn't necessarily do as good a job explaining how I got to where I got in that video. And so then I sit there wondering and being paranoid about, well, I didn't explain it well, so that's a me problem, not a you problem. But something Kurzgesagt talks about. Kurzgesagt's channel does fantastic science videos. He commented on this William Osman video, and he talks about the fact that when he first started the channel, his channel, huge channel by the way, amazing, I'll link to that down below as well. He talks about how he had people who wanted better for the content. Your science-related content should be more accurate. You missed this, you did this, whatever. He had lots of criticisms and critiques, and as his channel grew and as he was able to afford it, he hired and dealt with more and more professionals to fix all these issues. And then shockingly enough, his audience was still 1 to 5% negative. Meaning he talks about and focuses on the fact that you can't fix this problem. You can always improve your content, and you should always try to improve your content. But if you ever try to improve your content from the mindset of, I will fix the negative comments, I will make them go away, that won't happen. The 1 to 5% will always be the 1 to 5%. You should focus on yourself and improve yourself for yourself, not for them, because they'll always be there. And when he stopped trying to fix the negative, he found that the YouTube space was a lot better for him. It was a lot more peaceful, a lot less problematic dealing with the negative. Because something you have to realize is, I mean, thankfully this Board Game Code, this channel has done fairly well, thankfully. But still, 33,000 subscribers is not 2 million subscribers like some of these channels have. And 1 to 5% of 2 million is a whole lot of negative to wade through. I wouldn't want to be in those comment sections because the negative sticks out at you more. But those are all different balances there. Which also leads to my stance, by the way. My stance, which I've touched upon in prior videos, is more and more I don't engage with anything negative. If you are critical but polite, I will try to engage as much as possible. If you are negative in any way, I delete or block and move on. Like, I will straight up block your things. I mean, in general, if you're blocked on YouTube, what that means is that you can still comment, but your comments never show up. They never show up for you. They never show up for anyone. I mean, maybe for you they do, but they don't show up for anyone else. Like, if you log in on incognito mode to a video that you commented and you're blocked, your comment won't be there. That's how you'll know if you're blocked, by the way, or if no one ever replies or engages with your comment at all. Basically, it puts people in a little isolated bubble where they can keep being them, but nobody else has to be them around them. And so, negative comments on the channel, I will straight up block and move on. Negative when it's a lack of general respect. I can't continue to invest emotional energy in people who are draining that energy. If you are critical but polite, I will engage with you from today until tomorrow. In fact, recently when I did my first sponsorship video with Gamefound, that's part of the problem. Recently when I did my first sponsorship video with Gamefound on my to back or not to back video this past Monday, there was a very polite thread talking about the sponsorship, and I engaged with every single one in it. As long as you are polite, I will engage with you. If you are not polite, I will block and move on because I can't invest energy in it. And that's true, by the way, if you don't believe me. Anyone who chooses to not believe me, by all means, don't believe me. If you post, oh, I can't trust you anymore. Recently, I had a commenter who's been commenting on my videos for the past year and a half. And he commented, oh, I can't trust Alex with this company. Okay, straight up blocked. I will not invest my time and energy trying to convince you that I'm trustworthy. You either trust me or you don't. That is completely up to you. But I can't devote my energy into trying to convince you that I should be believable. Believe me or don't. This happened. It's like another person. This happened to another person who on Discord. And this person may be watching the video, and I apologize, but I'm not going to engage with you if you are. But this person, again, who I've been chatting with on Discord for the past year, and they posted about the Lords of Ragnarok review, but oh, I read your body language in both the initial review and in the update you posted in the weekend review, and it just doesn't seem believable, and I just don't trust you. Blocked. Done. I am not going to sit there and try to convince you. Also, another thing, at least comment on a video. At least have the decency to hide behind some sort of anonymity or something. To directly engage with someone who you've been chatting with for a year and a half and just say I don't believe you. Okay, cool story, bro. I'm not going to try to convince you. I can do that with things like a video or an update or even this video where it's part of the conversation and I enjoy it. I cannot devote one-to-one energy on a regular basis to try to convince people that I am believable. Although speaking of believability, this is part of the problem as well. When I get things like that, I currently don't take money from companies. This sponsorship aside, which we'll come back to, but I could take money for my video reviews. I could just call them a preview, talk about the video, and easily take money for several videos a week. Which would, by the way, enable me to leave my job today, in a heartbeat. If I was willing to take money for content, I could leave my job today. And again, it's not an issue of being paid for reviews. I wouldn't even review it. I would just do a preview and call it a day and move on. I could do that today easily. But I don't. Why don't I? Why am I not taking money from companies? Think about that. And again, this is not really related to most of you. The reason I don't take money from companies is because I believe that I would like you to have as much believability in me as possible. So I am leaving a full-time job worth of salary on the table. I go to work every single day and do things that aren't board games so that you'll find me more believable. Which means that when I do get comments like, oh, you're a shill or this or that, okay, maybe I should just take money from companies. And I'm not. The reason I'm not is because, again, I'm not going to fix the 1%, the 5%, whatever number they are, when most of you are awesome. Most of you are amazing, and I really appreciate you being here and watching this video and watching the other videos and being the reason why I continue to not. Again, this is a full-on sacrifice. I am leaving money on the table. Do the math on how many videos I do a week. Do the math on how little I'd have to charge for a video for this to be a full-time job today if I were willing to take money from publishers. I try to avoid that. I am leaving a lot of money on the table so that you believe me a bit more. So I hope that actually works. Because if it doesn't, then there's no reason not to do it. If I'm anyways a shill, if I'm anyways, oh yeah, Alex won't say anything for a free board game. Okay, great. I can. If I'm going to do that, I'll do it for more than a free board game, trust me. Anyways, that's a whole lead up, longer than I intended, as usual, to get to the part where let's talk about money. The sponsorship is going to be the last thing, full on the end of the video. You have to make your way through to it. Let's talk about money. My goal, if it wasn't clear already from multiple videos and even this video, is to make YouTube a full-time job for me. something William Osman talks about in his video as well. He doesn't do it for the money. I don't do this for the money either. Now, you don't have to believe me, but we'll explain that in a second. But I don't do this for the money. I do this because I love it. I love board games. I love this content creation thing. I never would have thought that. I mean, I knew I loved board games. I never would have thought that I'd love sitting in front of a camera and talking to you and engaging with you. I never would have thought that's something I want to do with my life. What I used to say growing up is I used to say I want to be like Jeff Bezos. And hold on. This is before anyone knew who he was. Okay, that's the point. It's not like I wanted to like fly to the moon in a specific type of rocket ship. No. Before Jeff Bezos was famous, he was someone who owned Amazon, and he was rich as anything, and nobody knew his name. If you go back 10 years, nobody knew who Jeff Bezos was. Maybe it's more than 10 years. It was a while ago. It was before I was married, so probably like 15 years ago. I used to say I want to be like Jeff Bezos. I want to be rich, but I don't want anyone to know who I am. And then weirdly, I wind up in front of a camera talking to way too many people. I never would have thought that I'd enjoy this, but I do. The problem, as William says, is that you have a choice. You can do what you want to a certain extent, and then the money enables you to do that more. I am already doing YouTube. I am not stopping no matter what. I mean, I can't guarantee the future, but I'm not stopping. I love this. I want to continue doing this, and if it has to be a side gig forever, it'll be a side gig forever. But if I can make it a full-time job, then I can just do it more. I can do what I love more. If you handed me a blank check on life, if you said, Alex, boom, you got all the money for the rest of your life, what do you want to do? The answer is this. 100% the answer is this. I love what I'm doing. And by this, I don't just mean board games. I mean the board games, the content, all that stuff. I love it. This is so tremendously satisfying in a way that I never would have thought. The idea. I mean, do you know what it's like to be the little kid inside of me cheering for joy when I get to deal with these companies who I used to buy their games? Like, I used to back a Kickstarter, waiting for it, and now on the other side of that thing, I get to talk to these companies. It's so mind-blowingly cool. Just sit down at a table with Eric Lang and play board games. This stuff is cool. I'm still a little kid. To be on the Dice Tower with a video with Tom Vassell, I am a freaking little kid having the time of my life, so thank you for that. Like, genuinely thank you. But if I do want to try to make it my full-time job, which I want to, then effectively you have to do the math. I have a family of 6. Oh, I forgot my stack of rule books. Oh, that would have been a shame. Something from the other video that I really, a part of the other video I really liked. I'll do it some other time. I'll find it. Anyways, let's talk money. If I do want to make it a full-time job, then I basically have to factor in the fact that I am... Oh, and by the way, another factor as well, to prove... I mean, can't prove it because you'd have to know my finances, but to prove that I'm doing this because I love it, is I am actively looking to take a pay cut to do this. I make a decent amount of money at my current job. I am looking to take a pay cut. I'm trying to see where I can save and take a genuine pay cut and make less money so that I can do this. That's my goal, because I have no such ambition that doing this will actually make as much money as I do at my day job, unless I took money from publishers. Because there's basically 5 ways that you can make money in the YouTube space, and 2 of them are basically the same idea, but we'll get to it. The 5 ways you can make money in the YouTube space, the 5 main ways, I guess there's 6 because you could probably do merch as well. I don't do merch. Maybe I should do merch at some point. You have to be fairly large for the merch to be worth the time. Either way, the 5 primary ways I would say is YouTube ads, ad revenue from YouTube, that's one way. Patreon, which is, well, I have a Patreon link down below, plug and all that if you want to support the channel, thank you. And then 3 is Kickstarter. Kickstarter and Patreon are kind of the same idea because that's basically just the idea of crowd support. It's the idea of the audience supporting you in one way or another. So same idea. Then we have paid previews, where you deal with companies and you get paid for specific videos that you're doing. And then there's channel sponsorships. Those are the 5 primary ways I'd say, and with the 6th being merch. That's, I think that's a fairly comprehensive way to do it. And you could have a 7th as well in terms of maybe I'm doing really classes. Maybe I have a class of how to play board games and you could buy my class. Like, you can promote your own brand, your own self as well. So I guess 7 if you want to count it that way. Those merch classes, not really relevant. Merch on my own brand are not relevant, which means for me the things that are relevant are YouTube ads, Patreon, Kickstarter, paid previews, and sponsorship. Let's get them out of the way right off the bat. Paid previews are off the table for as long as I can manage. What that means is, let's say I lost my job tomorrow. If I lost my job tomorrow and I couldn't pay the bills because I'm not yet where I need to be in the YouTube space to pay my bills, then yeah, I would consider paid sponsorships because I'd have to either go look for another job, which I would do as well. But in the meantime, paid sponsorships lets me put money on the table. Lets me put food on the table. And so I don't want to do paid sponsorships, paid previews, whatever it is. I don't want to do paid previews. I am willing to if I need to, and or if enough people were obnoxious, but probably not. No, I can't. I'm not catering to them. So that's off the table. Kickstarter is mostly off the table. Not forever necessarily, but I don't trust myself to do it well, to do it right. Generally running a Kickstarter for a content creator, you need to get involved with all these promos, all these other things. It's a whole different ballpark. I don't really have the energy for that. Maybe I would if this were my full-time job now, but right now I'm trying to mentally balance all the things I'm doing, and I don't see Kickstarter fitting in. Unless, of course, I go off the ledge and now I'm doing everything there and then I have time for it, maybe. But I don't see Kickstarter happening anytime soon, but I wouldn't say it won't happen ever. But it might happen. Maybe there will be a yearly Board Game Co. Kickstarter. I don't think so. Which brings me to the other three left, which are Patreon, YouTube ads, and channel sponsorships. Patreon and YouTube ads are great. Patreon, to anyone who's watching this as a patron, or thank you so much for being a patron. Anyone who's not a patron, you're awesome anyways, trust me. If you want to be a patron, that's great. I appreciate it. It does help, but it's also not required. You just being here is plenty. You subscribing, liking, watching, not being a jerk is already all the support that I need. And I get not being a patron, by the way. General stats are like 0.1% of your audience will become patrons, and I think that's roughly right. I have roughly 30,000 subscribers, around 300 patrons. I do have dedicated content there if you do become a patron, but either way, you don't need to become a patron. But Patreon helps. It definitely does help. Right now, you can check my Patreon. It's like, I think it's like $1,400, $1,500 a month right now, which very much does help bring it to that full-time position. Again, I have a family of 6. I need basically $100K a year to live. So you can factor the math. And my wife does have a job, so that does help. Patreon helps. YouTube ads. YouTube ads definitely helps. It's not nearly as much as people might think it is. It's not a lot of money. Any given video might bring in, if it's a hit video, it's different, but any given video might bring in, $5 to $15. And by the way, that's on the high end, meaning if you look at most of the board game space, if you're getting 1,000 views for your video, you're not getting a lot of money from there. Many content creators are not bringing in that much money. My videos do thankfully do decently well, so $5 to $15 already puts me above many other people in terms of like per video, whatever. That's not a lot of money. For the amount of time, effort, and energy that goes into a video, I guarantee you, not worth it. It does add up, so combined with Patreon, combined with everything, it for sure is a factor. But those two right now, combined, Patreon and YouTube ads combined, are definitely not enough to make this a full-time job, which means I have a choice. I can continue to hope that the numbers rise. And they may well. I don't have a firm picture. I haven't been doing this long enough. But they hopefully will continue to rise. But I don't know at what pace. I don't know for how long. And I don't have that guarantee either. Sometimes subscribers always do rise. Just a little insight into YouTube. Subscribers always do go up. That's true. But subscribers don't translate into revenue. What you get revenue is you get from views, and views don't always go up, because even though your subscribers go up, some people slowly cater off and have less content. They're like, oh, Board Game Co is great, but like it's the same shtick. I've seen his reviews, I've seen his should you back it. I'm not going to watch all of them. So you'll get like a burst of views, and then people trail off and watch less. So you need that constant subscriber count to go up, that new influx of people, in order to keep your views just level. For the past like 5-6 months, my views, and therefore my YouTube ad revenue, have been fairly level. Will it stay level? Will it go up? I don't have those answers. And without knowing whether my Patreon and YouTube ads will go up, I currently still can't make this a full-time job. Which brings us to sponsorships. Sponsorships are the option I don't like. I do not like the idea of sponsorships. I hate it. But I'm willing to consider it if it makes this something that I can do full-time. If this turns us, if I can spend, an extra 15-30 seconds per video, although it is more complicated than that, if I can spend an extra 15-30 seconds per video, and then put me that much closer for this being a full-time thing, it's worth it. You might not like it, and we'll get to that shortly. And many of you are totally fine with it. I can't tell you that. I put my video up on, my first sponsorship video went up on Monday. I was terrified that it would be received poorly. I was absolutely terrified, and it was not received poorly. It was received very well. There was minimal pushback. The complaints and criticisms were basically questioning and polite. I engaged instead of deleting. I'm incredibly thankful. But I don't like sponsorships. I'm doing them because it's something I am willing to consider to increase that actually being able to make it a full-time job while being as least distasteful as possible. Which brings us to the sponsorship. If you're making your way here from the beginning, welcome. You missed a whole long section of me rambling. Let's talk about the sponsorship. This is a sponsorship with Gamefound. Now, Gamefound, as many of you know and many of you don't know, Gamefound and Awakened Realms started off as the same company. I believe, and I might have my facts wrong here, but I believe they are two separate entities. They are two separate companies. Although, I believe they do have vested ownership to this, if that makes sense. I'm not certain about this, but I believe there's some shared ownership, which means even though they're separate companies, they may well be operating with each other's best interests. If I say Gamefound, some people just hear Gamefound, some people hear Awaken Realms. So Gamefound is now a channel sponsor, and that inherently does bias the pool of Awaken Realms. Meaning if I'm covering an Awaken Realms game, then yes, I am basically being paid, not by them, but by a company that has associations with them. So, I mean, even earlier in this video, I slipped up and said Awaken Realms when I meant Gamefound, because to me, they're synonymous. They are different companies, but I still think of them as being the same to a degree. But Gamefound is a channel sponsorship, so let's talk about the pros, the cons, the benefits, as well as, you know, what it means, what they're actually paying for, all that stuff. So to start off with, this is a trial sponsorship for them and for me. I'm testing both how much pushback I get from people, and pushback does matter. If it's 1 to 5%, write it off out the window. If it is, just because again, I can't cater to everyone. If it's significant, then I have to evaluate. If it's a significant portion of people who don't like it, I have to evaluate whether it makes sense. I don't want to tick people off. I just have to evaluate whether they're being irrational or whether they're being reasonable. That's the question for me. They're, you, whatever. I'm saying they're because you are all incredibly supportive, so I'm saying they're in this case. But yeah, so to start with, it's a trial sponsorship on both parts. On my part, I have to test whether people push back. I also have to test how much it impacts my content. There's now an extra degree of editing in every single video. There's also a degree of me going into a little bit of a spiel in each video that doesn't feel natural. I don't like doing it. I like talking about the games. I like just being direct. I don't like filtering my words. And when I'm doing that sponsorship piece, I am filtering my words. I am mostly reading from a script. I am not saying what I want to say and just free-flowing whatever I want. I have to say something specific. I don't like what that does to my videos. I don't like the tempo it adds. Now, it's mostly in my own head, and it's only for 15 to 30 seconds, but it still feels off. It's like, hi, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Today we're covering all these Kickstarters, but before that, let's talk about Gamefound. Too Many Bones Unbreakable is over on Gamefound and stuff, and back now to get an early... I'll do it, but like I like what I'm doing now, where I can just be like joking about it, as opposed to being more serious for 15 to 30 seconds. So it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off that pays money, but it's a trade-off. Then there's the fact that I have to check what it does to my scheduling. In the past, if I put up a video, and this is not always relevant, but some videos, and first of all, because I'm advertising specific games, I am not doing this on things like reviews, which are meant to live forever. A review is meant to live forever, so I don't want somebody watching a review for a game 3 years from now and seeing an ad for a Gamefound campaign they can't back. So specifically, I've taken that off the table already. I'm not willing to dilute the quality of the content. But for things that are time sensitive, a to back or not to back, a week in review, there's many things that are time sensitive on the channel that if you're watching it 3 years from now, I don't know why you are, and sure, you can get that 15-second ad. Then there's things like the scheduling aspect. Sometimes there are videos that are not as time sensitive, but they could go up this week or next. And by talking about the campaign now, I may have locked myself in because that campaign might be over next week. So there's all these different things I'm managing from pushback, from editing, from the flow, all those things I have to decide if it's the right partnership for me. On their end, they have to decide if it's delivering returns. The nature of algorithms or things, whatever, let's give a good example here is, at any given point, a high video in a month for me might have 12,000 views. Like a good video in a month might have 12 to 15,000 views. Versus the amount of unique viewers I have in a month are 100,000 views. So the more videos that have this, the more people that little spot is hitting. Advertising does work. It may not seem like it works, but it does work. The whole reason the entire YouTube ecosystem works, the entire Facebook ecosystem works, is because advertising does work. You show that little Gamefound spot for 15 seconds to enough people over enough videos, and you may have locked in 32 new backers. And that 32 new backers might pay for the sponsorship spot that they're paying to me. It has to be a mutual win-win, which also means the money has to be worth it. I'm not going to go through all these questions and deliberations if the money isn't worth it. Now, it's not big bucks. I'm not going to tell you what it is because, frankly, it's none of your business. But it's not as much as you might think. It is very little money right now. I've made it clear to them that the money has to go up for it to be worth it right now. Like I'm not going to continue doing it if it's the same amount that they're paying me right now. But again, it's a sponsorship. It's a trial. It's a trial for both of us. We're figuring things out together. And so it has to meaningfully add to the possibility that I can actually make this full time, which, depending how much it is, eventually might get there. And combined with a little bit of growth, I think that this could potentially be a big step. But that's as far as the general sponsorship aspect. As far as what they're paying for, it's exactly that. They're paying for a 15 to 30 second ad spot in a bunch of videos a week. For me, I've made it clear it has to be time-sensitive content. I don't want it living forever. So it'll only be in that kind of stuff. It won't necessarily be in a top 10 list. It might be in a games leaving my collection list. It's a balance of what's time-sensitive versus not. But that's where this content that's what they're paying for. They're paying for this 15 to 30 second ad spot. As far as what's in that ad spot, a little bit of B-roll or a video, something from them, some graphics or animation or something from them, as well as specific words that I should be covering. And the balance I have to wonder, which I'll have to deal with if or when it happens, is they've said I will have as much choice as possible. Meaning, if there's multiple campaigns that they're currently trying to promote, I will be able to choose the ones that I want, and I'll obviously choose the games I like more. The balance I'll have to work with, which I don't know what I'll do when that happens. I'm not saying I don't know, I haven't given it that much thought. What happens the first time they want me to promote a game that I didn't enjoy? Am I still willing to give a little spiel in the beginning of my video if I didn't enjoy the game? I don't have to love it. Like, it doesn't have to be my favorite game ever, but if I didn't enjoy it and I thought it was a bad game, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Fortunately, there's not a lot of bad games. There's usually games that were fun and games that were much more fun. Those are usually the categories for me. So, meaning I'll happily promote a game that I'm not getting, but I wouldn't want to promote a game that I didn't like, if that makes sense. I'll figure that out. I'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. But that's basically it. That's the sponsorship details. I don't know much more yet. It may not be forever. And if they go away, there may be another sponsor at one point. For me, I don't like sponsors. I don't like the whole thing I have to do. I'm willing to do it because there's always trade-offs. And if my trade-off options are I go to work every single day or I have a sponsor and 3 or 4 videos a week, this one's a whole lot more appealing. That's everything. That's the whole Gamefound partnership with Board Game Co. And then for context, yes, this partnership was talked about after I did the Lords of Ragnarok review. I would have been so much more hesitant to give a 5 out of 5 if I had a sponsorship with Gamefound. I would have been like, oh no, this is not a good look. I would have been even more nervous, about how could it possibly... Yeah, it happened after. Timing's a thing, whatever. In any case, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because I was genuinely terrified to have that video go up Monday. I was watching the dislike counter on my video. I was watching the comments more actively than I usually am because I was worried about pushback. I was worried there'd be a lot of pushback about the nature of me taking on a sponsor. The amount of pushback I got was incredibly minimal. And the amount of pushback I got was polite. And the like-to-dislike ratio on the video was better than normal. So thank you. Thank you for being supportive. Thank you for... I get in my own head sometimes. I got a little paranoid about who would dislike it and how many people would be upset that I have a sponsor. And I really appreciate, in general, you all being here. In general, watching. In general, commenting. In general, being a part of that magical algorithm that sends more views my way and all that stuff. I appreciate all of that. But I really appreciate that when I did something that I was scared to do, that I was scared about the audience reaction, I really appreciate that you showed me that I was wrong and that you were supportive and helpful. And I want to thank you for that. And for everything. I'm just going to keep going. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you all and have a good one.